Okay, so part 3 is the fun part. In this video, I'll be explaining the part of this game that stands out to me most on a personal level. As such, I'll have a few fun personal stories in here, and honestly, I think that's a good place to start. The idea of stories, I mean. Single-player adventure games are fun partially because of their power to immerse players and take them for a journey. They can put you into a state of exploration, a state of combat, a state of puzzle solving, fill in the blank. Single-player games are also fun because of our ability to talk about these things. Have you ever realized how fun it can be to just talk to your friends about how they experience the same journey as you? You'll find some good conversations on this topic. I think the non-linear nature of Breath of the Wild makes it one of the most fun games to discuss with friends. Let me elaborate on this further by talking about this game's approach to problem solving. First, I'm gonna have to bring up the shrines. There are 120 of these things hidden away throughout the land of Hyrule. Some would call these things mini-dungeons, but I think that's a bit generous. A few of them are that long, but most of them are more like puzzle rooms. And these puzzle rooms are intentionally designed in such a way that players can clear them in multiple ways. This shrine here is a good example, as it is right next to a town most players will find nice and early. The puzzle here is to use motion controls to control this maze and guide the ball through it so that it can roll down the slope to the side and activate a switch. It can be pretty frustrating getting the ball most of the way through the maze only for it to fall off. Most players will discover something here though. If you flip your controller upside down, you can flip the entire maze upside down. The bottom side is flat, so you can simply use the flat side as a ramp to send the ball where you need it to go. This is a pretty basic example of what players can expect to do in the rest of the shrines that they'll find. They can expect multiple solutions to their problems with a bit of creativity. It seems like the game doesn't usually expect you to find its solution to things, just a solution to things. I'll give some more examples of this in just a bit, but I think we should first dissect the systems that were put in place to allow for this type of puzzle design. This game utilizes a system of elemental reactions and dynamic physics to achieve its uniqueness. For example, grass sets on fire. So does wood. Say you shoot a fire arrow into the grass and then swing a wooden weapon into the fire. You'll have burning grass and a burning weapon. Swing the weapon at more grass, and you can watch the fire spread. What happens when air heats up? It rises. You can use the burning grass as an updraft for your glider. Neat. Electricity is another element in play here. You know what conducts electricity, right? Did you say water or metal? Don't worry, the developers got you covered either way. Shooting shock arrows at either of these substances will cause a little electric field to take effect. If you're out in a really bad storm, Link will start sparking. If you don't unequip your metal weapons within a few seconds, Link will get struck by lightning. Ridiculous. Here's a way to use this to your advantage. I don't have footage of the dungeon in question, but I am going to recreate the scenario for you. Your job in the dungeon is to move 2 electric orbs in front of a door. The electrical current between the orbs will power the door and allow you through it. However, you don't really need both orbs. Placing one orb down and then making a trail of metal weapons to the spot where the other orb is supposed to be will have the same effect. If you simply remember that metal always conducts electricity in this game, you can save yourself the time of collecting both orbs. Pretty cool, huh? Any movable object can be stasised and flung into oblivion. Flammable objects can catch fire and be doused with water. Water conducts electricity. So does metal. Fire melts ice. Wind pushes light objects and helps Link glide, etc. This system of objects interacting with elements and physics was apparently called the chemistry engine by Nintendo, and it took a very large portion of early development to make. I have some pretty cool examples of me using elements and physics to my advantage during my playthrough. For one, I found myself in this huge maze, of which there are 3 in the game. I was here pretty early, so I couldn't cheat and climb up the walls because they were so dang tall. I didn't have enough stamina for this situation. But I found a big box that I could stand on. So, you know what I did? I placed octo balloons on top of the box and let it rise as high as it would before the balloons popped. Starting from way up in the air, I was able to climb to the top of the maze. I made an educated guess on where to drop back in, and my educated guess was right. And that's how I solved the maze. Dude, octoballoons are fun. I cheesed a few shrines with these things. Then there was this other time. I was attempting to level up some armor of mine, but I really needed some red chew jelly. You get chew jelly from defeating chews, these gelatinous monsters. I had some standard blue jelly, but none of it in the red variety. I remembered that if you defeated a chew with an elemental attack, the jelly that would be dropped would be of that elemental variety, even if the chew in question was a standard blue one. For example, if you defeat a standard chew with an electric attack, it would drop a yellow chew jelly. That means it'll drop white jelly from an ice attack and red from a fire attack. So I needed red chew jelly to level up my armor, but honestly I didn't know where to find any chew, and I really didn't want to leave and have to go somewhere else, and then trek back to the fairy fountain just for my upgrade. So I asked myself this question: could I change the color of jelly after it's been removed from the chew? Well, I didn't seem to have a way to check at first glance. I didn't have any fire arrows or fire weapons, but then I remembered that you could make a campfire by placing flint and wood next to each other and striking the flint. I was like, this probably won't work, but let me just check. I dropped the jelly in the fire, and guess what? I got red jelly. I remembered recording this discovery right away, not because I thought I was the first to have found it or anything, but because I felt smart. I felt like my intuition led me to my desired result. Here's a Korok puzzle I really like. You'll find a circular rock formation near the middle of this body of water. Other Korok puzzles have led you to the knowledge that throwing a rock into this rocky circle will net you a Korok. But the positioning of this one just makes it a little tough. Link needs both hands to hold onto rocks, so you can't climb up the nearby hill to get a good vantage point. And you obviously can't throw the rock from the edge of the water. The formation is too far away. So, what should you do? Should you use stasis to send the rock flying? That's a pretty tough shot. How about an octoballoon and a Korok leaf combo? Possible, but still super tough. How about using Cryonis to play a game of bowling? Well, it seems to me that this was the most intended way to do it. I'm using air quotes, considering how well 3 Cryonis blocks fit into the space between Link and the rock formation. But I'll admit that here, the most practical solution isn't the first one that I thought of. I could have chosen the other options and wasted a ton of time, or I could have chosen to keep thinking. I chose the latter and was rewarded for it with a really cool solution. I could go on and on with example after example, but I think the main point I'm trying to make is that the way this game approaches problem solving is different. In other Zelda games, when you solve the solution to a problem and you hear you feel intelligent. You feel like you were smart enough to come to the solution that the dungeon and the developers laid before you. In Breath of the Wild, solving puzzles makes you feel intelligent, but in a different kind of way. You feel intuitive, creative, explorative. I can't think of another game where I asked myself, dude, can I do this? And was answered with a resounding, absolutely, so often. I freaking wondered if I could make baked goods using wheat, and then I put the appropriate ingredients together to make bread. Man, what's cooler than that? Nothing. And things such as these make this game a goldmine for discussion. There are so many ways of approaching everything. It's just interesting to see what different people do in the same circumstances when given a plethora of options. And all these details, man. Who remembers meeting their first dragon? Where'd you find it? Did you try to ride it like I did? Who remembers their first blood moon? How did you react? Did you know that feeding an Endura carrot to your horse will give it a bit more endurance the next time you get on it? How did you figure out cooking? Did you know that the wildlife in this game reacts to sound in general? If you want to get a headshot on something but it's facing the wrong way, you can whistle to make it turn around. Did you know you can approach sand seals more easily by blowing them up with bombs? They get dizzy for a few seconds and you can just kind of run up to them. You ever use a bomb near Death Mountain? 'Cause you shouldn't. See, and I just kind of have to stop myself here, because I could just keep going. Alright, let me end my Breath of the Wild ranting with a challenging thought. When I first set off on my Breath of the Wild retrospective adventure, I claimed the game to be a 10 out of 10. Honestly, I stand by this. In the gaming world, the term masterpiece seems to be this untouchable standard, I suppose I'm saying that from my observation, gamers reserve the term masterpiece for perfection. A game which has literally no objective flaws. The thing is, I don't think Breath of the Wild really fits that description. Over the course of these videos, I've admitted some holes in this game. The progression is very unique and tangible, but very slow. Weapon breakage eventually becomes annoying. One of the challenge rooms in the Trial of the Sword DLC is almost broken in Master Mode. It's nearly impossible to do without some sort of extreme cheese, and I don't like that at all. Cooking is an awesome mechanic, but because the inventory limit is so ridiculously high, it can be potentially abused. If a player is willing to take the time to collect tons of materials, they can just stockpile a million meals and take them into battle. I wonder if this game would have benefited from an encounter system like the one in Kingdom Hearts, where you can only carry a certain number of items into any given battle. I'm not sure, I'm just throwing ideas out there. But here's the thing. For all of these flaws, there's just so much more good. This game represents to me the inner, innocent sense of wonder that every gamer once had. The landscape, the music, or lack thereof, the combat, the puzzles, the adventure. Man. Now, if you Google the word masterpiece, you will come to find that it does not mean perfect. It says a work of outstanding artistry, skill, or workmanship. A masterpiece is a masterfully made piece. If you aren't willing to call Breath of the Wild a masterpiece by that standard, I don't know what to tell you, buddy.